And good evening. Welcome to Kopernik Observatory and Science Center. My name is Drew Desker. I'm the director here. Would like to welcome all of you here this evening here at Kopernik. Also want to welcome those watching on our live stream. And it's great to have people both here and out in the ether. So actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to swing this a little bit this way, and I want you to wave to the people on the live stream. All right, well, there we go. So it's great to have you here tonight. We have a great presentation. It's great to see some familiar faces, some members here. Who's here for the first time? Oh, a good couple of people. All right, great. Who here are members? Oh, okay, nice. All right, well, for the people who are here for the first time, the people that raised their hand second, if you will, members have a special knowledge of how valuable a Kopernik membership is. Kopernik belongs to it's called the Association of Science and Technology Centers. There's a consortium of over 350 other science centers, and a Kopernik membership gets you into those 350 other science centers. Our family membership is very cost effective, being only $60 for the year. It gets you into any of our Friday night programs for free. But you can then take that membership card and go to the Franklin Institute, the Intrepid down in New York City, Roberson, or the Ithaca Science Center, and get in for free. So it's a great value, and it certainly helps us out a lot as well. I'm going to talk about the live stream here for a moment. So back in 2020, when we had basically closed down to the public because of the pandemic. We said, okay, well, we'll just close down for a couple of weeks, let this whole COVID thing blow over, and we'll be back doing what we do. And well, obviously that didn't happen. So after about 2 months, we decided we wanted to stay connected with the public, so we started doing our live streams. And the first couple ones were pretty rough, but over time we learned how to do it better, get some better technology. And we've had some outstanding, not only Friday night programs, but also observing programs. Jeremy Carty is our live stream observer. I'm going to pan him over here. Actually, hold on, so that the people on live stream can see. Say hi to Jeremy. There he is. Anyway, he has become an internet sensation, I'd like to say. We've had some outstanding live streams of the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, of Comet Neowise. Back in May, there was a lunar eclipse that at one point we had over 25,000 people on our YouTube channel. And in the chat, people were saying, we left NASA's live stream to come to yours because we like yours better. Well, as it turns out, Tuesday morning, go to bed really early or drink a lot of coffee late at night, because starting around 2:30, Jeremy will be up here again. We're not going to be open to the public, but we will be live streaming. There's another lunar eclipse that will happen. Jeremy, I think you said right now the weather is looking promising?
I just double checked, and it's still looking pretty good. Yep.
All right, so go to our YouTube channel, and if you can't sleep, check out the eclipse. What's really fun about that is the interaction that people have with the chat. And literally, we'll get people from around the world will be plugged in to our chat. And what's also been nice was that when we were doing the live stream only, people that would live locally that would tune in, when we finally were able to open to the public, would actually come up here. So we actually got to meet those people that we sort of met for the first time on the chat. So every Friday night from March to mid-December, Kopernik offers these programs. It's an opportunity to learn about something, not necessarily just astronomy, and obviously tonight's program is not about astronomy, not directly, but it's an opportunity to walk away with a little more knowledge than you might have had before you walked in. And we're very fortunate to have Professor Bruce Oldfield, who is an emeritus professor from SUNY-Broome in the geology department, and he's been up here to talk a few times on a couple different topics, but tonight will be about dinosaur artifacts. So Professor, if you want to turn your mic on. If you
I did.
Oh, all right, very good, you're good. All right, so I'm going to stop babbling and let Professor Oldfield take you way back in time.
Okay, I'm going to take my mask off if that's all right, because I have a little bit of trouble speaking sometimes with it on. And you don't get to see my great beard. My other job is Santa Claus. Yeah, watch out. So I'm keeping track tonight. Okay, hi, my name is Bruce Oldfield. I'm a native. We moved here when I was 3, so I consider myself a local person. And I never really knew what I was going to do with my life, but when I was very young, I was 9. Anybody here 9? Anybody older than 9? Yeah, a couple of adults. Anybody younger than 9? Okay. Well, when I was 9 years old, my older brother, who is a jerk, had to do a project for his class, his grade school class. And we lived in Endwell, on a creek in Endwell, and we spent a lot of time in that creek as kids, because it's a very cool place to be when you're a kid. And he collected a bunch of rocks from that creek, and he did a science project. And gee, it was a real loser project, and I knew I could do better. So I went out and I collected rocks, and collected rocks, and collected rocks, and collected rocks. And so now I have somewhere around 10,000 rocks. So it's a problem. Hi, my name is Bruce. I have a problem. That was for the adults, kids. So I started collecting rocks just to show my brother I could do a better job. Incidentally, I went on to become a geologist and a college professor, and I got a paycheck about this big. And my dumb brother, my older brother, went into banking, and he brought home paychecks this big. So I'm not sure who won that contest. But I started when I was 9. As a matter of fact, part of the reason I got started was this book. Somebody else said that they had read this book, especially as a child. It's just an old book. I'm not recommending that anybody read it, but it was about the trip that scientists from the American Museum of Natural History did when they went to the Gobi Desert. They found dinosaur remnants, but most importantly, they found nests of dinosaur eggs. And that was very, very important. We're going to talk about that tonight. So this is the book that kind of got me started on it. But basically, I went to college, studied geology. I am a paleontologist. I do study fossils, but I'm not a vertebrate paleontologist. I don't study animals with backbones. That doesn't mean I don't know anything about them, but my main focus has been on local fossils. I couldn't have grown up in a better place. This area used to be a shoreline 365 million years ago, and you can just, within an hour drive, go to different parts of that shoreline and collect different kinds of fossils. And the fossils in this area are fantastic. They're just wonderful to collect. So I encourage you to get out and collect some fossils. And maybe, who knows what will happen. I'm not telling you to be a geologist. I'm not telling you to be a paleontologist. I'm just be interested in your world. Well, I do know a lot about dinosaurs. I've taught classes on dinosaurs. I've helped other people to study dinosaurs and so on. So I thought I'd do this little talk on dinosaurs, and I got some great dinosaur fossils up here that some of you have already seen, and you'll all have to see. And we'll talk about these as we go along. But I have good news and bad news. The good news is that this is on the dinosaurs, and everybody loves the dinosaurs and wants to know about the dinosaurs. The bad news is I'm a scientist, and it's technical. So I'm going to lose some of the people in the room tonight. So if you guys are having trouble understanding what's going on, it's really okay. Eventually, we're going to tell a story. What we're going to do is we're going to look at some evidence, what kind of things we find about the dinosaurs, and we're going to try to tell a story about a dinosaur. But not in a kid's book story. A real story. What happened to this dinosaur? It turns out that we can actually know quite a bit. So if you get lost in the first part of it, it's okay. It'll get better as we go on, I hope. I don't guarantee it. All right, let's see. Let's get started.
Are you gonna
Just grab this. This implies I know how to use this. I do. Good start to the night. Okay, let's talk about how many holes you have in your head. Okay, guys, we're going to do a count here. All right, ready? Okay, you have a head, right? How many holes do you have in your head? Well, let's see. We've got eyes, right? Now, what other animals have eyes? Well, almost all of them do, right? So everybody's got eyes. Okay, most animals breathe. Most animals have a nose, right? So the deal is that the basic form for a skull, for your head, is that you have a hole for your eye and a hole for your nose. And this group of animals were called the anapsids, that is, without an extra hole kind of deal. And they included things like the early reptiles and some turtles and some amphibians and so on. You know, frogs can't hear. Frogs don't have ears. They don't have that hole kind of a deal. There's another group of animals called the synapsids. And the synapsids have an extra hole. And I say that you have an extra hole. That extra hole is this hole right here. These are the holes that we use for hearing. And the synapsids include things like the mammals, like you and me. So we have this extra hole, nostril, eye socket, and this extra hole. And that's what we use for hearing. The dinosaurs are different. The dinosaurs have two holes. They're diapsids. Di means two. They have two of these holes. And there are a couple other modern animals that have it. Snakes have this, lizards have this, and birds have this as well. So that's the first thing that distinguishes the dinosaurs from sort of everybody else. Got it? How many holes do you have? 7. A lot. Okay, the next thing we have to think about is how we stand. You know, if you think about how different animals move, different animals stand in different ways. And when we think about things like lizards, you know, crocodiles and things like that, they kind of move with their arms and their legs out. They sprawl, right? There's a group of animals that had an erect stance. They stood up straight, so to speak, but their hips were different from our hips. These were called the Rauisuchians, and you probably don't know the Rauisuchians, but the Rauisuchians were the dominant reptiles on the earth before the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs supplanted them. Dinosaurs and mammals, you and me, have a deal where we stand upright, but we have sort of a hip socket and a hip joint kind of a deal, and so that's different. That's what separates the dinosaurs from all other lizards and all other reptiles, is its hip. So that's the second one. Third thing has to do with the pelvis itself. The pelvis is this part on your sides. Let's see if we can find it on our bodies, guys. See if you can find your pelvis. All right, can you find your hip bone? You can find some other bones. Stop touching yourself in public. The hip bones on dinosaurs are different from everybody else's, and they come in two flavors. one of which is called the saurischian, which is sort of a lizard-like hip, where the pubis and the ischium are separated. Here is a theropod dinosaur. This is a leg, this is another leg, but this is his hips. This is the pubis and the ischium. They're separate. And that includes dinosaurs like the theropods and the sauropods. Does everybody know what a theropod is? Anybody want to know? Okay, they're the carnivorous dinosaurs, like T-Rex was a theropod. These are the guys that eat the other dinosaurs. The sauropods were herbivores, and they had long necks. Most of them had long necks, like Brontosaurus or Diplodocus, something along those lines. And they have this type of hip. There's another type of dinosaur where the pubis and the ischium are fused. Kind of hard to see in this picture, but it's broken off here. But here's the pubis, and here's the ischium here, and they're fused. And these type of dinosaurs have a pelvic structure that's like birds. So we call these the ornithischia. Ornith means bird. Ischia is referring to what the ischium is doing. And these include things like the ornithopods. Do you know what an ornithopod is? Anyone? Come on, you guys all know about the dinosaurs. You kids do, don't you? Can't you name them all? Okay. It's a duck-billed dinosaur. Duck-bill. Okay, we're going to see some of these. The ankylosaurs. You know those? You recognize those? The tank-like ones that are low to the ground kind of a deal. You have to talk a whole lot louder.
I know a type of dinosaur, a Brachiosaurus.
Okay. Yep, that's a sauropod. The ceratopsians like Triceratops and the stegosaurs that had the big plates. So they had a different kind of hip. So that's the third characteristic that separate the dinosaurs. Now, let's take a little time out here. How big were the dinosaurs? Huge, right? Nah, most of them weren't. Most of them were big. Most of them you wouldn't want to meet on a dark night. Okay? But most of them were the size of a big dog to the size of a cow or a buffalo or something like that. They had long necks and tails that make them look bigger, but their bodies weren't all that big. Yes, there were big dinosaurs. Yes, some of them were truly, truly gigantic. So, how do they move? How can they move those tremendous weights? Well, they have a special kind of hip. They have a special kind of stance. They also have a special kind of ankle. They have to do something about the ankle. And this is far more complicated than anybody cares to look at, but we find that the ankle of different animals is different, and the dinosaurs have this what we call advanced metatarsal ankle situation where the astragalus and calcaneum are directly underneath the leg bones to support the weight. Yes? That's the fourth characteristic. The feet are a problem. When we first discovered dinosaurs back in the 1800s, we didn't know what they were. We honestly had no idea what these things that they were finding were. So they tried to figure out what these things were, and they didn't get it all right. They got some of it wrong. The biggest thing they screwed up were the names of the feet, because a theropod, these are the carnivores like T-Rex. Theropods have 3 toes, and birds have 3 toes, so these guys should be called the ornithopods because they have a bird foot. Unfortunately, the ornithopods have a very different type of foot, and they misnamed, no bird has a foot that looks like that, and they called it ornithopod anyhow. So they got the names of the feet backwards. But that is our 5th characteristic, that their feet were able to hold these weights. Here's another very complicated, we're getting to the good stuff, stay with me. This is another complicated diagram, but the dinosaurs started out as the diapsids, and over time they evolved into different groups. For instance, the dinosaurs end up down here. These are the Rossuchians. These are the guys that were before the dinosaurs, and then these are a couple of things that evolved in the seas and other places at the same time. All right, so let's talk about some artifacts. Let's talk about the kinds of things we see. When I say the word artifact, I'm talking about evidence, physical evidence of something that we found. For instance, dinosaur bone. We can tell a lot from a little piece of bone. I don't know what dinosaur this came from. It's too small of a piece, and the person that found it only found a little piece. But this is now a rock. Would you confirm that this is a rock? Hold it. Is that a rock? Yeah, it's a rock. Is this a rock? Okay. But these were bones. Can I have them back? These were bones. They've fossilized. They've turned to stone. And what I did is I polished the ends of them, because if you look at the end of this particular piece and you look at the marrow of the bone, these cells are open in this piece, and that tells me that this is an herbivore. What does an herbivore eat? Plants. Okay? On the other hand, this one, polish the end of this one, these cells are closed, and this is a carnivore. What do carnivores eat? They eat herbivores. Okay, so these are the meat eaters. So we can tell that from the bone right away. The next thing we can do is sometimes we can tell the gender of the dinosaur. Does anybody know what I mean by gender?
If they're female or male.
Whether it's a male or a female. Very good. Whether it's a male or a female. So by looking at the bones, we can tell whether it was a male or a female. I am so excited. I went to a rock and gem show in Syracuse last July just to see what they had. I wasn't going to buy anything. You know, rocks are expensive. Fossils are really expensive. And this guy had this. And it's not a pork chop. It looks like a pork chop, but it's not. This is actually a leg bone from a tyrannosaur. So this is a very large carnivorous dinosaur, and this is from the femur of that dinosaur, and they've cut it in a cross section like this. So whereas my femur is about this big, look at this. Look at this femur. What was cool about this is that this bone, which is now stone, has the cortical bone, the sort of hardened bone on the outside, and that tells me that since this is so thick, that this was from a very old Tyrannosaurus, and it has the marrow. But it has this little brown area here. This little brown area is called the medullary gland, or the medullary bone, medullary bone, and what this does is it stores calcium carbonate. It stores calcium carbonate to make eggs. Birds do this. Dinosaurs did this. So I know that this is from an old female Tyrannosaurus. It's for sale. I'm going to sell it for 3 times what I paid for it. I'm not selling it. A lot. This is a scientific paper where this guy has gone through and cut up a lot of different dinosaur bones, and he's showing you actually 3 different, very different kinds of dinosaurs. The ornithopods, the duckbills, the theropods like T-Rex, the iguanodontids like Iguanodon, and they all have this little space in here where they store calcium carbonate to make eggs. And I do have 2 eggs. Many of you have touched this. What did this feel like? It was rough, wasn't it? It's kind of a rough texture. This is a raptor egg. This is from something like the raptors. How many people have seen the Jurassic Park movies? Yeah, show us your t-shirt. Nice t-shirt. Okay, the raptors. Y'all know what I'm talking about? This is a raptor egg. Now, I don't know if it's an oviraptor or a maniporaptor, but it's a raptor egg. This came out of China. Back in the 1990s, when they first started discovering these things in China, they were actually selling them. You could go to a rock and gem show, and if you had enough money, you could buy one, and I bought one. They've since closed down the sale of dinosaur eggs and a lot of dinosaur artifacts out of China because China thought we were stealing their cultural history. And I understand that, but it cut off our supply. But this is a raptor egg. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So we know the gender of the dinosaurs. We also know that dinosaurs had nests. They actually provide some of the dinosaurs, not all, some of the dinosaurs had nests where they would actually keep their young and feed their young. They'd actually bring food to the nest for the animals to digest. And Maiasaurus, which is the most famous one, which was found by Jack Horner out in Montana, this particular dinosaur really had a lot of evidence of its nesting behavior. And Maiasaurus means good mother lizard. But nesting behavior can be seen in many different types of dinosaurs. We find their tracks. Now, for those of you that have gone through a New York State education, at some point in earth science, you should have learned that the continents came together, they broke apart, they came together again, and they broke apart. Oh wait, they came together again, and they broke apart. And that last time that they came together and broke apart, when they broke apart, cracks formed on the east coast of the United States. And on the east coast of the United States, there's a couple of cracks that are famous. One of them is called the Hudson Valley. Gee, did you ever wonder why it was so straight? You wonder why it's got those lava flows on either side? It's a crack from the breakup of Pangea. There was another one in the Connecticut area, Connecticut and Massachusetts, for the Connecticut River. And in that particular valley, they find some of the very oldest dinosaur footprints. And I went to a rock and gem show up in Massachusetts, and there was a guy selling his, oops, sorry, that was me, wasn't it? Okay, I didn't knock it off. Does it still work? Okay. He was selling his rock collection. He found this rock. He cored this rock himself, and we've taken a little bit of Elmer's glue and just painted it a little bit because this is something I could remove if I wanted to study the rock itself. But these are the footprints of some of the very first dinosaurs that evolved. This particular one here is a dinosaur. The footprint is called Grelator, and we believe that this particular dinosaur was actually pick a dinosaur, any dinosaur. Was this dinosaur, Coelophysis. And Coelophysis is actually the official dinosaur of New York State. Now, we don't find Coelophysis dinosaur anything in New York State. But for you adults, if I could just talk to the adults for a moment, do you remember when Governor Christie was having some problems with doing something for one of the presidents, and they retaliated by shutting down one of the on-ramps to the George Washington Bridge from New Jersey. Do you remember any of that? That particular ramp, when they were building the George Washington Bridge in the 1890s or whatever it was, when they were building the George Washington Bridge, they actually found some dinosaur footprints at Fort Lee, New Jersey. And because that was an on-ramp to Manhattan, we claimed it as the official New York State dinosaur. They have, of course, since paved it over for a parking lot for a strip mall. But we have dinosaur footprints. More evidence. If you ever get a chance to go to Amherst or to Yale University in New Haven, both places have these dinosaur footprints from the Connecticut River Valley that are just fantastic. They're just beautifully displayed. They're on rollers. You can actually roll them out and look at them. They're gigantic pieces of rock. And we find trackways from all different kinds of dinosaurs all over the world. We also find these things. These things are called gastroliths. Gastro means stomach, lith means stone. These are stomach stones. If you own a parakeet or a parrot or a cockatiel or a macaw or whatever big bird you have to feed it little rocks to help it grind up its food in its crop. These rocks were swallowed by a dinosaur to help grind up his food. They're called gastroliths. They're nice and shiny and polished by the action of moving in their stomach. And we find them, in the stomach areas of these dinosaur fossils. There's a woman in Colorado who's studying these bones very carefully. And what she's doing is she's taking and extracting some proteins from some ligaments in the dinosaurs, and she's studying those proteins. And she did it in the theropods, like a T-Rex kind of a thing, and she found that the closest match these proteins have to modern animals is to the birds. So we now have an answer to the question, what did dinosaurs taste like? They tasted like chicken. I'm not making this up. I swear. Dinosaurs had feathers. Not all dinosaurs. Some dinosaurs had feathers, especially the theropods. The theropods, like T-Rex, had feathers. Modern birds have them. Lots of things have feathers. Incidentally, this raptor egg is probably from this kind of an animal. Just thought I'd show you Junior. Here's a immature T-Rex with feathers. This is a drawing, of course. It's not a photograph. It's a drawing. But we think that they certainly had feathers when they were younger. We find evidence on young dinosaurs all the time. Before we go on, there's a couple of other things that I brought with me to talk about. One of which are these, and most of the children here have already identified these as being fossil poop. They're dinosaur poop that has turned to stone. And sometimes we find fairly large pieces. So this piece was about this big, and we've sliced it so we can see inside of it and put lacquer on it so we can really see inside of it. And the little red dots in here, and I'm going to encourage you to come up and look at these. The little red dots in here are plant matter. We know what this dinosaur was eating. Speaking of which, the largest dinosaur coprolite. The largest dinosaur turd we ever found was about 4 feet long, 4 to 5 feet long, and it was a Tyrannosaurus turd. And they found bones in him. And guess what the bones belong to? Other dinosaurs. Yeah, that's too general. Come on, I need names. Go for it. Nope. There were baby Tyrannosaurus bones in the turd. The mothers ate the babies. You okay? Not all of them, no. In this case, they did. Okay, so these are the kinds of things that we look for. We look for the bones, we look for other things that are associated with them, and we want to tell a story. So I want to tell you a story about a particular dinosaur called Tyrannosaurus Sioux. Anybody heard of Tyrannosaurus Sioux? Yeah. See, some of you already know, right? I had an opportunity to study Tyrannosaurus Sioux when it was at the Cleveland Museum of Natural Science in Cleveland, Ohio, and I have some information from that I'd like to share with you. Tyrannosaurus Sioux was found several decades ago, 1990, by a woman named Sue Hendrickson. So we call it Tyrannosaurus Sioux after the person that found it. And it had sort of a strange career in modern times, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But basically, this was the most complete and largest and arguably the oldest Tyrannosaurus we've ever found. And she's big, or he's big. We don't know the gender. We haven't cut into the leg bone. This bone with the calcium deposit came from like right in here on the dinosaur, on this particular dinosaur. This is Tyrannosaurus Sioux. She's mounted at the Field Museum in Chicago, and they've done a beautiful job with it. She's even appeared in some movies. If you ever saw that awful movie Hannibal about Hannibal Lecter, they have a scene where he's in Washington, D.C., and they run through Union Station in Washington, D.C., and they show this. That's in Ohio, or that's in, at that time, that was in Chicago. They just put it into the movie for some odd reason. And yes, Dinosaur 13 was Tyrannosaurus Sioux. We'll get to that. So here's a model. This is not her actual head. This is a model of her head. And the reason that I show you this is that these are the eye holes. These are the eye sockets. And I'd like to point out that the eye sockets are pointing forward so that they could see in stereo. They could see depth. So when they were coming at you, they knew how far away you were. They were very good at what they did. Birds that are predatory birds all have their eyes facing forward as well. What other animals have their eyes facing forward? We do. This is her actual head. They actually mounted the head, which was nothing short of a miracle because it was so heavy. But this is her head, and these are the extra holes. This is the diapsid part. This is her eye hole. These holes are muscle attachments. In order to use this tremendous lower jaw, they had to have huge muscles in their faces, and those muscles had to attach to something, and they attached in these two places here. A couple of other things I'd like to point out is these holes down here are a problem for us to understand. It's likely that this dinosaur was bit by another dinosaur, and they got infected, and they think that these are infection scars in the jaw of this particular dinosaur. Yes. You're going to have to say it loud, though. Do you have a question?
It kind of looks like it was like shot or something.
It does, but there were no guns and no people to shoot it at that time. I'd also like to point out that she's missing teeth. Okay? Turns out Tyrannosauruses are kind of like great white sharks, or all sharks. I don't know if you know this or not, but sharks have rows of teeth. And as a tooth breaks off, when it bites something, if a tooth breaks off, the next tooth pops up to replace it. We call them spit teeth. You're kind of spitting out your teeth, so to speak. Dinosaurs also had spit teeth. These Tyrannosauruses had spit teeth that would break off, and then a new one would emerge where the other one broke off. This is not a real Tyrannosaurus tooth. I've handled real Tyrannosaurus teeth. This is a plastic replica. But what's interesting is they've done a fine job of reproducing this, because there's a serrated edge, like a knife edge on this side and a knife edge on this side, and it roughly has the shape of a D. Do you see the letter D? Nod your head yes, whether you see it or not. And some of these serrations were so sharp, I actually cut myself in the museum handling one of the Tyrannosaurus teeth. This is a plastic replica. They're very expensive. I'm not spending that kind of money. This is the left femur of Tyrannosaurus. She apparently had an injury that became infected, so that the femur was actually twice the size of the right femur. So she had a problem with that. She broke a couple ribs. Somehow got into a fight or something, broke a couple ribs. Anybody understand that? Yeah. She apparently had arthritis. She was so big and so heavy that the bones to support that tremendous weight overgrew, and she got arthritis in her tail. This is old people talking, kids. Her tail got broken twice and healed. So the deal is that we can actually sort of write a story about Sue. We can say something about her life. We know that she probably lived to be about 28 years old. Some dinosaur bones have growth rings, and we can count the growth rings just like you count tree rings and tell how old the animal was. And Sue was probably about 28 years old. We don't know of any other Tyrannosaurus that lived that long. She had several injuries. Her right shoulder was damaged. The shoulder blade was damaged. She had a torn tendon on her right arm, 3 broken ribs, broken tail in a couple places. She had an infection, and so on. And there's also some other evidence that she probably suffered from gout, which is a disease of not having a balance of your kidneys, kind of a deal. So we can actually tell something about her life. Unfortunately, she became a problem. You don't need to read this, and I'm not going to read it to you either. But basically what happened was, when they contracted with the landowner to look on the land, they found this Tyrannosaurus. They excavated the Tyrannosaurus. They paid him X number of dollars for the Tyrannosaurus. They took it to their museum where these things are prepped, where they're prepared. These things are in solid rock. We have to remove them from the rock. We have to move the rock away from the bone, kind of a deal. And there became a dispute as to who actually owned this dinosaur. And it was the FBI and the National Guard that raided the museum, arrested everybody in the museum. The director of the museum actually went to prison for a couple of years because there was a dispute as to who actually owned the land. And ultimately, the courts decided that the guy owned the land, the guy owned the dinosaur, and he put it on auction at Sotheby's, and it sold for about $8.4 million. What amazes me is who put the money up for this, who actually bought it. The California State University system. Hey, wait a minute. I work for the New York University system. We never had money like that. Broome Community College does not have its own dinosaur. Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, you recognize that name. And how about the Ronald McDonald House? Ronald McDonald House put up millions of dollars towards the purchase of this. What's the Ronald McDonald House? Anybody know? Yeah, it's where you put the change in the little slot, and the money goes to helping children who are ill and their families. Not my money. My money went to buying this dinosaur. So the deal is that we do know quite a bit about the dinosaurs. Even in my lifetime, the little bit that we knew about dinosaurs, for instance, in this book, has changed dramatically. Every 10 years, we learn more about the dinosaurs than we've learned in the entire past. So there's a couple things I want to just talk about and show you before we sort of close for the night. You know, I grew up collecting fossils. I grew up loving the dinosaurs. You know, I wish we had dinosaurs in this area. Listen carefully. There are no dinosaur fossils in New York State. We don't have the rocks of the right age. Okay? So I never found a dinosaur. Well, a couple years ago, I convinced my friend to go with me to Montana, and while we were in Montana, we went into an area called the Hell Creek Formation. And the Hell Creek Formation is noted for having lots and lots of triceratops. You guys know triceratops, right? Triceratops is this guy with the horns, kind of a deal, right? Triceratops. Well, I was in the creek. Girlfriend said, I'll give you 15 minutes. So I go in the creek, I'm looking in the creek, and I see this thing, and I go, oh, it can't be. And so I pick it up and I take it, and we took it to the Dinosaur Museum in Bozeman, Montana, and they told me that this is a distal phalange of Triceratops horridus. So let me help you with this. How many people have toes? Anybody got a toe? Okay. I want you to think about your toe for a minute. Okay. When you think about your toe actually is made up of 3 bones. Right? When you curl your toes, you know, those are the 3 bones. Oh, wait. It's like 1, 2, 3. My fingers are the same way. Okay? The deal is the distal phalange is this last piece. Would you be willing to take your shoes and socks off? No? Too weird? Okay, you'll take yours off? Let's see your toes. Okay, so we see his foot. Everybody see his foot? Okay, this is what the bones in your foot look like. Okay, so here's a toe. Here's one bone. Here's another bone, and here's the last bone, the distal phalange. So I'm gonna touch your foot. Okay, so this is your distal phalange right here. See how big it is? Look at this, guys. This is a dinosaur distal phalange. This is the end of the toe of this dinosaur. And so at the museum they said, well, it is a distal phalange of a Triceratops horridus, And if I had not taken it out of the creek, it would have been destroyed by weathering within a year. So I rescued it. I have a couple of other stones I'd like to just talk about. Let's go back to talking about eggs. Okay, so back in the 1990s, China starts selling its fossils on the world market, and I bought this egg. And again, this is a raptor egg. You can actually feel the eggshell. The eggshell actually goes all the way through it. We know that for a fact. This is a egg from a different kind of a dinosaur. This is from a hadrosaur called Saurolophus. This comes from the Gobi Desert, the old Roy Chapman Andrews business. And this is nice. And I worked for many, many decades at SUNY-Broome, and we have a radiology department. And so I talked to one of the women in the radiology department. I said, what are the chances we could have these x-rayed? And she said, they're good. And we took these to Wilson Hospital, United Health Services, Wilson Hospital in Johnson City, and they did a CT scan on these. And I was so fearful. Now, you notice the red color? That's because there's some iron in this. I was so afraid that this thing was going to explode in their $4 million machine and destroy it, but it didn't. They did a number of x-ray slices through it, and we found that there probably is not a baby inside of this. There are some bright spots that would be caused by bones, but we just don't see solid evidence that there was a baby in here. The deal is, if the baby had been in here, this is what the baby would look like. And as somebody correctly identified, who identified this? Did you tell me what this was?
That's
Beak tooth. That's right. The dinosaurs had this little beak tooth on the front, kind of like birds do, where they would use to cut to get out of their eggshell. And then after they were out of the eggshell, the beak tooth would fall off. This hadrosaur egg is empty. We're certain of it, that it's empty. It probably was not even fertilized. And that's why it's still so perfect, because if the dinosaur had been born, the eggshell would have been crushed completely, right? From the little baby getting out of the eggshell. So we have these things up here, and I'm going to encourage you to come up and touch these things and look at these things. You have one more question, do you? I'm really hard of hearing because I'm old, so let me come to you.
Do you know Paul Miller?
Do I what? No.
Do you know Paul Miller?
No, I don't.
Well, he works at BU.
Oh, he does. Okay. So I want to thank you for coming. I entertain any questions you might have. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's the copyright date on the book?
Oh, I don't know.
Repeat the question for those people on the live stream.
He asked what the copyright date of this book.
Yeah, you read that when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
I want to know how old you are.
1953.
Capsules dissolve in the stomach and therefore have to be replenished periodically.
Probably.
The acid would do that. And where was Sue found?
Where was which one from?
Joanna,
Montana, Hell Creek Formation in Montana. I'd have to look up the exact place, but it was close to Bozeman.
Are like Montana and China the two big places for dinosaurs?
Say it again?
Are Montana and China the two big places?
Well, there are plenty of places in Utah and Wyoming. The Dakotas are excellent places. Texas has some of the earlier dinosaurs in southern Texas. So yeah, out west.
All right, do we have any other questions out here? Hold on, let me just bring the mic over here.
Have you ever had the chance to study what might be considered like a mummified hadrosaur?
I have not. I know that they're starting to find these mummified dinosaurs and these incredibly well-preserved dinosaurs. There's one that's been in the news lately. No, I haven't. Honestly, to tell you the truth, most of the work I did in studying dinosaurs, both here and in England, I did some at the British Museum, were decades ago. I'm getting old.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Wondered, they say what happened to the dinosaurs that made it extinct? Was it an asteroid or something like that?
Could you repeat the question again?
The question was, if I can rephrase your question, about the asteroid causing the extinction of the dinosaurs. That's very, very likely. That's the best possibility at this time. Science is provisional. We might revise that, but right now it is the best evidence. There was a 6 to 9 mile wide asteroid that struck the Earth about 66 million years ago. It left a large crater in the Yucatan of Mexico, and we believe, and there's really good evidence for this, that will cause the extinction of the dinosaurs. Nowadays, they're saying there might have been a second hit off the coast of Africa. It's very likely that there was more than one hit. They don't have good physical evidence. They don't have a rock, pardon me, but they don't have a rock that says, yeah, this happened. They have other data that indicates it happens, but not physical evidence.
All right.
Yes, it is. It is that iridium that was found by the Alvarezes that was a tip-off that something happened. This iridium is a platinum family metal. Anybody here own any platinum jewelry? If you look on the inside of your ring, it'll say something like 90% platinum, 10% iridium, or 95% platinum, 5% iridium. They put the iridium in there to harden the platinum. Platinum's a soft metal unless you alloy it. And so we have iridium on the Earth, but this iridium that they're finding in these clay layers at the end of the dinosaurs was extraterrestrial. Its associated elements are extraterrestrial and not from the Earth. And that's what the evidence that we first used to say that the asteroid killed off the dinosaurs.
Right.
There's other evidence, but iridium is a good one.
We have a couple of questions from the chat, if I could. Derek asks, what dinosaurs may have been roamed around here locally, and have any fossils been found in this area?
Okay, the answer to that's very easy. No dinosaurs. The rocks in this area are 365 million years old. The dinosaurs don't show up until about 180 million years ago. So our rocks are 2 times too old to have dinosaur fossils.
All right. Another question is, why does Montana have so many dinos?
Well, it has a lot to do with the fact that the geology of that area at that time was conducive to being populated by the dinosaurs. The other is that erosion hasn't removed the rock. The rock is still there. There may have been dinosaurs in New York, but we don't have those rocks. Those rocks have been eroded away.
All right. Another question here? All right.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
If you're aware of this, could you explain some of the pigmentation that's been discovered in dinosaur feathers to explain what color they may have been?
Well, I know a little bit about that, not a lot, but they do find these, I think they call them chromophores, that indicate that some of them had some coloration. And it's not the kind of coloration that you see dinosaurs have in kids' books, but, browns and grays and things like that. But yeah, we're getting better and better about analyzing the evidence in finding more and more information. And yeah, they did find some that are very convincing evidence that they were colored feathers on the dinosaurs, just not bright colors. Camo colors. They were probably using it to hide.
All right, that's all the questions we've got from the chat so far, and it's 9:02, so we're right on time. I'm sure Professor Oldfield will be happy to stick around and answer any questions if you want to come up and check some of his samples out. We do have still the moon and Jupiter available in our scopes, and at this point we've lost Saturn. It seems to be clouded over, but if it pops out, we'll go chase it. So again, the rule here is you can't leave Kopernik until you look through a scope. So please head straight out those double doors. We've got some scopes out in the yard. And Professor, I want to thank you again for
thank you.
an outstanding.
I brought presents. I brought Herkimer diamonds for the kids.
Oh, excellent. Also, if you go out into the main lobby and look to the left, you'll see our Earth Science room, and there is a lit-up display case that Professor Oldfield managed to help us get from the Southern Tier Geological Society, and there's some fossils in there.
Wait.
And check it out.
Wait. We have to do this right. You take a bag. You take a label. And you can take two. Any